The morning mist clung to the gates of Buckingham Palace like an unspoken warning. Tourists shuffled along the barriers, snapping photos, sipping hot drinks, pointing at the iconic red tunics standing in perfect formation. The ceremonial precision of the Queen's Guard was unbroken, each man a fortress of silence wrapped in wool and ritual. Lance Corporal Elijah Rowe stood at the northwest post, 39 years old, 6 feet 2, rifle upright, chin level, eyes fixed. He hadn't moved in 19 minutes. His gaze stretched beyond the crowd and into nothing, trained not to react, not to flinch, not to exist in the chaos, only in duty. And in that frozen duty, he saw everything. 10-year-old Elijah Jackson tugged his mother's sleeve, eyes wide with quiet awe. "Mama, they don't even blink," he whispered. His mother chuckled, placing a hand on his shoulder. "They're trained not to. That's their job." Beside them stood his father, tall and proud in a charcoal coat. Behind him, the boy's sister, no older than 6, swung a plush corgi keychain with innocent fascination. The Jacksons were visiting from Birmingham, a short weekend getaway. The mother had saved for months. She wanted her son to see something timeless, something solid, something proud. They were not expecting what happened next. At first, it was just noise, a loud American accent over the shuffle of winter boots and camera shutters. "You're in the way, kid." Then again, louder. "I said, you're blocking the shot." The voice belonged to a man in his 50s, white, short-cropped graying hair, branded jacket, expensive DSLR slung over one shoulder, the type who'd bark at waiters and tip badly. He stepped closer to the Jacksons, specifically to Elijah. "Didn't your parents teach you manners?" he snapped. "Move along, boy." Elijah froze, instinctively shrinking toward his mother. She opened her mouth to respond, but no words came. Not yet. People noticed. That's the cruelest part of moments like these. People always notice. A couple 2 meters away shifted uneasily. A man adjusted his scarf and looked down at his phone. 2 teenagers exchanged glances. A tourist raised a phone as if about to record, then lowered it, unsure. No one said anything. The air had thickened, not with wind, but with shame. And in the silence, the man pressed again. "You deaf too? Move, kid. I flew 5,000 miles to get this shot. I'm not letting some street brat ruin it." Lance Corporal Rowe hadn't blinked. But his eyes, those trained, steeled, quietly fierce eyes, had locked onto the scene 15 yards ahead. His training told him, maintain position. Do not engage. Do not speak. The weight of centuries pressed down on his shoulders in red wool and bearskin fur. But his humanity, it trembled. Still, he did not move. Not yet. Because sometimes the silence is where judgment takes form. Elijah's father stepped between the boy and the man, his voice low, controlled. "There's no need for that tone." The man scoffed. "Oh, now you talk? He was in the way. Maybe teach your kid some respect." "I'm teaching him exactly that," the father replied, "by not stooping to your level." The man laughed bitterly. "Oh, I see. One of those lessons in dignity, huh? You people love to act noble when the cameras are on." Several phones now hovered above the crowd, recording silently. The mother gasped. The boy blinked, and the guard still hadn't moved. The man turned toward the boy again, pointing now. You think standing here makes you important? He spat. You'll grow up and still be in someone's way. Don't forget that. The mother pulled Elijah close. He buried his face in her coat. And still, no one in the crowd spoke. No one interrupted, except for the sound of a rifle shifting. It was subtle, surgical, the kind of movement that you wouldn't catch unless you were looking. Lance Corporal Rowe's right hand adjusted his grip on the rifle. A half-inch shift, nothing more. But the sound, sharp, deliberate, sliced through the courtyard like a command. The crowd turned. The man turned. And the boy looked up. The guard spoke. Only once. His voice was low but resonant, like gravel shaped by centuries. Step away from the child. The man blinked, stumbled. Are you talking to me? Rowe didn't respond. He didn't need to. His eyes did the speaking now. Cold, unshaken, locked like iron sights. People gasped. A queen's guard does not speak. That's the rule. That's the ceremony. That's the performance tourists expect. But this wasn't performance. This wasn't tourism. This was protection. And now the crowd, the silent, complicit, unsure crowd, had a mirror held to them. Phones came back up. This time, they stayed steady. Faces shifted from discomfort to guilt, to something deeper. Respect. Look, I didn't mean, the man stammered. But the words were already hollow. He stepped back, away from the family. His bravado, now a sagging coat. The expensive camera forgotten. No one applauded. No one cheered. Because some victories demand reverence, not noise. Elijah Jackson turned back toward the guard. Rowe hadn't moved again. He had resumed his 1,000-yard stare, his body locked in ritual once more. But something had changed. The boy's eyes lingered for a moment. Then he raised his right hand, not in a salute, not in fear, but in silent thanks. Rowe said nothing. But if one looked closely, if one watched the curve of his cheek beneath that stoic expression, they might have seen the faintest shift, a single muscle twitch, almost a smile. The man disappeared into the crowd. No one spoke to him. No one followed. And yet, what happened lingered like morning mist on iron gates. Not because it had been dramatic, but because it had been earned. The kind of moment you don't record just for views. The kind of moment you carry with you. Because someone chose not to wait. Not to ask. Not to justify. Just to speak. Once. The video was only 14 seconds long. A guard, a voice, a single command. Step away from the child. No shouting. No confrontation. Just the cold, unmistakable gravity of those 6 words. By nightfall, it had been shared across 6 platforms. By midnight, it was everywhere. They didn't know his name, just the still frame of his face beneath a bearskin cap. The guard who spoke began trending before sunrise. The internet did what it always does. It speculated. Was he ex-SAS? Was the child royalty? Was it staged? Was it AI? But one truth stood undisputed. He had spoken when no one else would. Lance Corporal Elijah Rowe stood in a gray-walled administrative room inside Wellington Barracks. No rifle, no bearskin, just regulation blues, polished boots, and a spine that refused to bend. Major Camden sat across from him. Between them, a printed report. A tablet looping the footage. "You broke protocol," Camden said. Rowe nodded once. "Yes, sir." "You understand the severity?" "Yes, sir." A beat passed. Camden exhaled. "You also understand. No one's looking to crucify you. But they are looking." Emails were flying through the Ministry of Defense. Some were outraged. A soldier is not an influencer. Some were measured. Public sentiment is overwhelmingly supportive. One was brutally honest. "We can't punish him without provoking hell online. We can't promote him without undermining discipline. So, we wait." And somewhere in between, the truth twisted. The Jackson family sat around their dinner table that evening. No one touched the food. Elijah stared at the screen, watching himself again and again. Not the man, not the insult, but the guard. The moment he spoke, "Do you think he got in trouble?" Elijah finally asked. His mother looked at her husband. "I think he knew he would," she said softly. The boy's hand curled into a fist. "I want to say thank you." "You already did," his father replied. You looked up. Rowe returned to his bunk in silence. His locker, as always, was immaculate. His uniform hung with perfect symmetry. His boots lined in a way that made inspection unnecessary. But something had shifted. When he walked the corridor, junior guards stiffened just slightly more. When he entered the mess, conversations halted half a second late. Not disrespect, not reverence, just uncertainty. As if his silence now spoke louder than before. The report read, "Violation, broke protocol by engaging verbally with civilian." Context, possible racially motivated incident involving minor. Threat level, non-existent. Public reaction, extremely favorable. Recommendation, disciplinary hearing delayed pending outcome of press interest. Rowe signed where told, then returned to standing. 2 days later, a black Range Rover pulled into the barracks courtyard. Out stepped a figure in a tailored suit, an undersecretary for Defense Affairs. Cameras followed. He shook hands with officers, smiled for photos, walked along the inspection line, stopped in front of Rowe. "You're the one who broke centuries of silence," the man said. Rowe didn't respond. "Got the whole world watching, Corporal." Still no response. The undersecretary leaned in. "I hope it was worth it." Rowe blinked once. It was the only answer he gave. That evening, Elijah Jackson sat down with a sheet of paper. The idea had been his. He didn't know the man's name, but he wrote anyway. "Dear Guard, I don't know if you'll ever see this, but thank you for saying something no one else did. Not even me. I think I was scared. But when you spoke, I wasn't anymore. I want to be like that one day. I want to be quiet and strong, too. Elijah Jackson, age 10. His mother posted a photo of the letter to social media with the caption, "He never asked for a thank you, but my son needed to say it anyway." It went viral within 6 hours. In a private chamber, Major Camden sat with Colonel Reeves. "He's too visible," Reeves said. "If we punish him, the press will crucify us. If we ignore it, the other guards think discipline's optional." Camden didn't reply. "You trained him," Reeves added. "I did," Camden said. "He was the best in his class. Not the fastest, not the loudest, just unbreakable." "And now," Camden exhaled slowly. "Still unbreakable, just not silent anymore." That night, Rowe received a sealed envelope. Posting adjustment. Effective immediately. Lance Corporal Rowe is reassigned from ceremonial duty rotation to internal security detail. Duration, indefinite. Reason, administrative transition. He folded it precisely, placed it inside his locker. Did not react, not visibly. The next morning, a small group of children passed through the gates on a school tour. Among them, a black girl of about 9 slowed her steps near the guard line. Her teacher called ahead. She turned back once, raised her hand to her brow, saluted. Lance Corporal Rowe did not blink, but in his peripheral vision, he saw everything. The official stance was silence. No press conference, no statement, no name disclosed. But the silence this time wasn't apathy. It was protection. The kind of silence that shields, that honors, that says, this was never about applause. Late that night, Elijah Jackson lay in bed. His father entered, sitting beside him. "You asleep?" The boy shook his head. "Do you think I'll see him again?" Elijah asked. "Maybe," his father said. "But if not, then what he said will stay with you anyway." The boy nodded slowly, then whispered, "I think the whole world heard it, Dad." His father smiled in the dark. "They did, son. They did." 3 weeks later, the courtyard at Buckingham Palace hadn't changed. Same stones, same protocols, same red uniforms. But something was different. Not in appearance, in attention. Tourists no longer looked past the guards. Now they watched, studied, respected. One whispered, "That's where it happened." Another, "Is he here today?" But he wasn't. Lance Corporal Elijah Rowe now reported to the inner corridors. No fanfare, no camera flashes, just cold marble and duty. He patrolled archive halls, sat in midnight watch posts, escorted VIPs whose names he never remembered. And yet, his presence carried a weight that others noticed. When Rowe stood beside a doorway, people stood straighter. When he passed, conversation softened. They didn't talk about the incident. They didn't need to. His silence did the talking. The colonel read a memo twice before calling Major Camden. "They want to quietly restore his ceremonial role," he said. Camden raised a brow. "Really?" The colonel shrugged. Public interest hasn't dropped. The boy's letter went on display in the Guards Museum. And last week, Parliament quoted the phrase, "This uniform doesn't answer to ego." They both exhaled. Then Camden smirked. About time we start listening to our own values. Elijah Jackson stood on stage at his school's Cultural Unity Day. He wore a blazer 2 sizes too big. His voice trembled. There was a man in red. He didn't yell. He didn't hit. He just stood still. And then he said, "Step away from the child." The room was silent. Elijah looked up. "He changed how I see quiet people. I used to think loud was strong. Now I know. Strong is standing still when it's hardest." A teacher wiped away a tear. The room erupted in applause. 2 months later, Roe received a secure message. To Lance Corporal Elijah Roe. From Lord Chamberlain's office. Special appearance request. A private audience with the royal family. Unrelated to punishment. Entirely voluntary. He stared at it for long minutes before replying. Confirmed. When he arrived at the private sitting room inside Windsor, he was led past a corridor lined with portraits. But in one alcove, surrounded by velvet ropes, was a simple display. A child's handwritten letter. Next to it, a still frame. Roe in uniform, hand midair, breaking protocol. No fanfare, no plaque, just a title, "The Day Silence Spoke." There was no medal, no speech, no headlines. Just a quiet thank you, and a handshake from the Duke of Cambridge. "You didn't just guard the palace that day," the Duke said. "You guarded what it's supposed to stand for." Roe said nothing. But for the first time in months, he allowed a subtle nod. 5 years passed. Tourists still came. The guards still stood. And on the first Saturday of spring, a 15-year-old boy wearing his school blazer walked through the palace gates. Elijah Jackson had grown. He walked taller now, not loud, not showy, but with presence. He paused at the edge of the ceremonial post, where guards rotated shifts. He recognized the figure immediately. Roe hadn't changed much. His posture, perfect. His silence, absolute. But Elijah stepped closer, not enough to breach the boundary, just enough to be seen. He didn't speak. He didn't salute. He simply stood, shoulders back, eyes forward, mirroring the guard who once protected him. And then, with the same restraint Roe had once shown, Elijah nodded once, just once. Roe blinked, just once, and that was enough. The moment passed silently, but not unnoticed. A nearby tourist whispered, "What just happened?" Another replied, "Something worth remembering." That summer, the Guard's historical records added a new entry. Entry 2374. The 14-second shift. No mention of race, no mention of discipline, just, when challenged by disrespect, one guard responded with calm authority. He protected not only a child, but the dignity of duty itself. Back at Wellington Barracks, Roe sat alone in his quarters. He unfolded a piece of paper he still kept. Elijah's original letter. He hadn't laminated it. He hadn't hidden it. It was just there, worn at the edges, marked by time. He didn't read it. He didn't need to. Instead, he opened his locker. Inside, his boots, polished, his uniform, flawless, and beside them, a card sent by Elijah's school. Thank you for teaching us that silence is a language too. He closed the locker gently and stood, just as he always had, still, present, watching, and never, ever forgetting.